Alright. We are doing part 2. Can you actually pass my water bottle, love?
I need to repent of my sins because in the last one I was telling Tshego to move the mic away from her mouth, and actually the best audio was when it was right here. So I have a lot to learn about using phones as microphones.
100%.
Anyways, let's not waste a moment, let's not waste a second. The last thing Tshego said was, I saw it as a distraction. It being her question, do you see me as more than just a sister in Christ?
That was...
I think this is where mismoving on happens, eh?
Yeah. So, because Santana saw it as a distraction, one of our good friends, Cameron, he was kind of like, Tshego, I think you need to move on. And we called it the mismoving on era. And so I remember going home and praying and trying to be like, okay, God, I'm laying this down. I was going to write a letter to Santana that I would never give to him. Basically, I'm done trusting for this. But then for some reason...
That's your song.
Huh?
That's your song done.
Yeah.
Check her out on SoundCloud.
Oh my God, I wrote a song on SoundCloud when I was 17 called Done. Anyway, that's what he's referring to. So yes, I was very much like that song. So done. I've never been more done. That was me. But I couldn't necessarily shake that. God wasn't done, even though I was done.
Yeah.
So I continued to pray about it, and I had people speak into my life don't give up. God's doing a thing. And I'm like, I'll see it when I believe it. I'll believe it when I see it, sorry. Yeah, so that's kind of what I was going through. And also at this time, it was a couple months before I was about to move to New York. So in my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to New York. I'm going to forget this ever happened. I'm going to meet my husband in New York, and I'm going to be a freaking actress in New York. And I'm just going to be an American citizen because I'll marry an American man. And I'll just forget about this Santana fella. And he'll just be the guy I thought was my husband. So that's where I was.
And then April comes.
Now this is really important.
And a conference happens.
Yes. So we both go to a worship conference at our church.
You go, I don't go.
Oh, yeah. A worship conference. And I'm in the car with Rebecca and Reiki, again, women in our church community. And Reiki kind of spills the beans about, Tshego thinks she's heard God about, Santana. And I was very much, again, in my mismoving on era. And Rebecca was like, well, you have to say something. So Rebecca literally has a conversation with me that day. And she was like, you know what, Heke, don't tell him everything that God said. But if he's really your friend, if he's really your best friend, then you can tell him anything. And I think the least that you can do is have an honest conversation with him. And I'm like, you know what, Rebecca, I've already decided that I'm going to move to New York and be an actress and marry an American man. So I'm going to be fine. And she was like, okay, but if you did hear God, then you are willingly acting in disobedience by not acting in faith. And I was like, fine. By the end of today, you're going to have a conversation with him. And so literally I waited till the last second. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We clock off at 4:30. And I'm like, hey friend, so can I speak to you?
She said, can we have a chat sometime? I said, let's go right now.
Yeah, he was
just finished.
It's let's go right now. I don't like waiting with something that's hanging over my head. Let's go right now.
Yeah.
So then, actually, you take it over from here.
So then we go for a walk. I'm like, where do you want to chat? And she's like, no, let's outside. I said, okay, let's go for a walk.
Let's just walk.
So 7th of April, 2022, we're walking around the property, and she goes, so what's God saying to you? And I go,
I was basically
just continue in singleness, just, be faithful to the word, just be married to Jesus, just, next 5 years. Basically the Wolfpack thing. And then I say, and she goes, oh, that's great. And then I say, and what's God saying to you? And she's like, same, just be faithful. New York's going to be so cool. And I'm like, you're lying. What's God really saying? Because by this time we were besties, so I could tell when she was bluffing and when she was telling the truth.
Yeah.
And she was bluffing. So then she goes, do you really want to know? And I'm like, that's why I asked the question. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask the question. And she goes, are you sure? I go, bruh, come on. You're my bestie. How bad could it be? I was not expecting. Oh, so I believe the Lord said that you're my husband.
And this is the thing.
No,
Rebecca
but she
specifically.
didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
She said, I believe God has been speaking to me about you. And I go, oh, okay. What makes you think that? And then we just had a conversation where she wasn't saying like, the Lord said you're my husband, so now you got to marry me. It was more, I think this is what God's saying. I think this is how he's highlighting you.
Yes.
What do you think?
And then kind of like unpacking what the past like year was for me, basically like sitting on this information and bringing like people into basically kind of what we shared in part 1.
Yeah.
But like just as a casual conversation. And I remember telling him like, oh, I don't want to share this with you because I feel like that's manipulation and like that's not what I'm doing here. I'm not one of those crazy girls. It's like, you're my husband and this is why, and it doesn't matter what you think, we're getting married. Like it was not like that at all. It was just like genuinely a 3-hour conversation.
You don't need to defend yourself. No one's coming for you.
I know, but it was genuinely like 3 hours of just like us unpacking, like, this is what I think, these are the ways I think God's highlighting you. And it's funny because like it wasn't even like in that conversation like I was hitting on him. I was not flirting, I was not doing anything. I was like, this is just.
And in the conversation while this was happening, my heart was jumping over the moon. I was like, yes, because I already had a big crush on her. We were already great friends, so it didn't feel like I was being pushed or forced into anything. It felt like the gates were opening and I was like, no ways do I get to walk through this. But at the same time wrestling with, is this a distraction? Because I've been walking stuff out with Chris, like I said. So we basically had that chat, super exciting, and then we didn't chat for the next, 3 days. Because I was just like, I need to hear the Lord on this. I need to, all of that. And recently, I'd had a chat with Chris. And one of the things that I asked him, because it was just a check-in, hey man, I have some questions about finances and how to do it in a godly way. And one of the things I asked him as well was, could you see Tshego being my wife? And he goes, no. And I'm like, okay, cool, next thing. So that had just happened. That's fresh in my brain. So I'm wrestling with that, wrestling with what she said, wrestling with what I believe God's saying. And 2 days or so before this, like the same week, I was reading in the Word, I was reading Song of Songs. And it said, don't awaken love before it's time. And I don't know why the verse kind of jumped out to me and got stuck in my head. And it didn't make sense because there wasn't any love for me to awaken, or at least I didn't think so. So I was kind of like, that's such a weird verse, why? Trying to figure it out, had no idea. And then when this happened, like a couple days after or so, God reminded me of that and I was like, oh. And then on Monday, we were working. We don't usually work on Mondays, but we came to work and we sat down and had a conversation. And we got the word Jeremiah 29:11.
Yes.
Because she was sitting, and I was sitting, and I was fiddling with my bookmark. And then I go, so we're busy talking it through, kind of not sure what is going on. I turn my bookmark around and I say to her, does this verse mean anything to you? And she goes, and she just rotates her water bottle. And it's the exact same verse on her water bottle. And we were like, okay, I think this might be God. Let's meditate on it and see what he's saying.
And then funnily enough, the next day, God was like, read your diary entry from like the day before, so the April 7th or like one of those days. And at the time, the journal that I was using had Bible verses at the bottom of every day. And it so happened that like the Bible verse at the bottom of the April 7th page was Jeremiah 29 verse 11.
Let's say it for them so that we're not just giving them scripture. No need to be sorry.
For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. So that was the word.
As you can see, it's nothing like he's the one, she's the one. It was kind of just, don't worry, I've got a plan to give you a good hope and a future. So we are like, what the heck? We start talking to leaders, start talking to them, still asking God. We're getting words like Isaiah 40, I think it's 40, somewhere there, between 40 and 43. Wait on the Lord, he's doing a new thing. Those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. So all of this just like, wait on me, trust me, wait on me, trust me. Yeah, that kind of thing. So he didn't say, and it was very frustrating. Because I'm like, Lord, can you just tell me if this is my wife? But what he was doing, which this was kind of how I rationalized it in my head. I was like, okay, either she's my wife, because why would he be saying all of these things if there was no intention behind it? Or this is something I have to walk out well before my wife. So either way, my response is the same. I just need to honor God and honor her. And then we start talking to people. They start saying things like, walk it out in community.
They say, build a foundation of friendship. So that's what we did.
Basically see how it goes.
So, and they said like, they basically were like, we see what you guys are seeing. But the only reason why we're married as long as we are is because we're best friends. So
Some
work
people
on your
didn't even
friendship.
say that.
No, some people didn't.
A lot of people didn't even say like, we see what you see. They were more, it was more a caution, like, be careful.
So all of the wives said to me, I see what you're seeing. But all of the gents to Santana were like, okay. Like,
We had separate conversations. So mine were all, oh, be careful. Just be friends, pray about it and see. She's going to New York, so don't start anything. And all the wives were like,
oh my gosh, God's doing a thing. We see it. We're praying. So like, it was like both like caution and excitement at the same time. And even later on, like when I asked Chris, like, why did you say no? And he was like, I was just so focused on getting Santana's mind off of girls.
yeah, Chris was just trying to protect me because I was literally coming to him, well, before this, every couple weeks it felt like, dude, I met this girl at work on the weekend and she believes in moon stuff, but I really think that I can bring her to Jesus. And he's like, dude, stop being a dumbass.
And so their heart was on our maturity and like protecting and guarding our hearts before God does whatever he's going to do.
Exactly.
And I remember like also, you know, Santana at this time, he went home to his mother's house after, not to his mother's house, where he was staying with his family. And it was after like our conversation on April 7th.
Hadn't told anybody anything. We just had our chat.
Yes.
And I was like trying to figure stuff out. And then I come downstairs. And we had just visited my family in Limpopo because my uncle had passed away. And my aunt and uncle have adopted a little girl named Abigail. And she's mixed race. She's adorable. And we just spent some time there. So we came back and my mom had a dream. And in the dream, she had lots of grandkids and they looked just like Abby. She's like, that's so weird because no one in my family is mixed. No one in my family is with anybody of another race. Like, that's so strange. And so I don't remember when she told me about it, but when she told me about it, I was like, holy smokes, that's weird because Tshego and I might be a thing. And she was like, whoa.
Yeah, like Tshego and I just had a conversation like a couple days ago. And also that day he had asked her like, Mom, something happened today. This is the April 7th day. Something happened today. I'm not going to tell you about it. Just go and pray and tell me what God says in the morning. And the next day she goes, I don't know the details of anything, but all I know is that it's about Tshego. And by the way, this is a dream that I had a while ago.
How strange.
And so
Not a while ago, like that week.
Oh,
yeah.
That week that I like had the conversation, but before I even had the conversation with him.
Yeah.
And so it was just like God was moving on our behalf, but again, it was like excitement, but like wait on me and like move in maturity.
And then comes the fun part where we were dating in community. That was a sweet season.
That was a sweet season.
That was a lot of movies as a group, like getting pizza together. That was a lot of just hangouts where it was Tshego and I and different groups of our friends. And it was
and Santana did such a great job of like pursuing me in community, of like organizing things just for the excuse of like hanging out with me. And at that time, obviously, because we called it our intentional friendship season, so we didn't even call it dating in community. We called it intentional friendship, which means
she wasn't my girlfriend.
If you wouldn't do that with a friend that's a girl, then like pause in terms of like physical intimacy. So we didn't hold hands, we didn't kiss. Like he would organize like these dates in community, but like we'd sit next to each other and like our kneecaps would rub and we'd be like hee. Like it was literally like that.
Yeah. Exactly. And so loads of fun. That was the healthiest
it was so beautiful
I've ever dated in my life. It was so good because at any point it could have ended and we could have walked away, and I reckon in a week we'd be fine.
Yeah,
like,
we'd be healthy.
But I love that. Just hundies.
Oh, but there's shame. Oh, this boundary was crossed. None of that. So honestly, I would recommend that for any and everybody who's wanting to figure stuff out with someone. And so that went on for 2.5 months, but that was when we fell in love with each other, but we didn't say it.
Because she was leaving.
Because I was leaving. But we also didn't think like professing our love for each other every day was really going to help our hearts not get ahead of God.
Yeah.
Because one thing our mentor said was be at the pace of grace, which means don't get ahead of God, but also don't fall behind God. Like commune with the Holy Spirit every single day and get in line with the pace of grace that he has for your relationship. And so like, what does he want for you guys now? Friendship? Dude, let's do that. And so like me like leaving every single day being like, I love you. Like that's not going to help that season. So we would say like, I have a deep regard for you. And we'd do like a finger touch thing at the end of every day. We go ting.
Yeah.
And so then it came 2.5 months later where, and today I'm moving to New York.
Whoa,
and
this was weird. They had what they call uprising at our church, where basically young people get to preach. I got asked to preach and I got approached and I was like 100%, I love preaching, I definitely want to do that. And then somebody else was going to preach, but then there was like a last minute dropout. Long story short, the person I was going to preach with wasn't preaching anymore. And they're like, I wonder who else is going to preach. This day was the day before she was leaving to New York. That's all happening. And then they have a chat with us and they're like, hey, we figured out who's going to preach with you.
Tshego.
And I was like, holy smokes. So we prepped a message from Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. You are the Lord's handiwork, created for good works, which God has prepared in advance for you to do. And we got to preach on the main, let me not say main stage. It's not the main stage. It's the adult church stage.
Yes.
And that was insane. I've never preached on the adult church stage.
Me either.
She's never preached on the adult church stage. And now we were doing it for the first time together the day before she left to New York.
It was insane.
It was emotional. It was gooey. It was mushy. There was a lot of crying. Oh, her mom was there. Oh my goodness.
And his parents were there. It was beautiful.
Her mom was there because she'd just come back from Canada for a surprise like Mother's Day thing, surprise Tshego. And that was a whole beautiful moment where she saw me and it was like, oh my gosh, all the stuff my girl's been saying to me seemed to be coming to pass, but in such a good, like slow, healthy way. So that was beautiful. Really. Then it's the last day.
The last day.
So emotional. We go on a walk together.
So we had like a whole day together where he like took me on a beautiful walk, like a scenic walk around Baloo.
Yeah.
And then we went to Nando's, which is like the first place we had like our accidental date where we were just like the two of us, but we brought our sister. And then we went home, we packed.
Yeah.
And then we went to the airport
and
all of my friends came.
And if you've ever seen a movie, this was way better than that.
I think we have to insert the clip of the movie where literally I was saying goodbye.
No, that
weeping.
whole moment, like that whole day, it was like a literal movie.
So, it was insane. And so we're at the airport and I'm saying goodbye to everyone and Santana has to be the last person, of course. And then like I run into his arms and he picks me up and like spins me around and we're crying. And then, he whispers, I love you. And then like through my tears, I love you too. And then like I'm weeping.
You remind me of why I break my hands. You remind me of why I move my feet. You remind me of why I give a damn. You remind me of the breaking love I need. The breaking love I need.
And then it was time for me to go. And so then I walked through the glass. And then at the end of every night, we always used to go ting with our fingers. And I don't know, we just forgot in that moment. So I literally ran back like it was a movie so that I can ting him through the glass. Like there's a video of this.
Anyways.
Ting him through the glass. And it was just like I got on that flight and I cried the entire... Guys, it is a long flight from South Africa to New York. I cried the entire time. I felt like I left my heart in South Africa. And I literally was like, I've prayed my whole... for such a long time for this, and it felt like I was flying away from my answered prayer, but towards another answered prayer. So it was just such a complex emotions. And my parents looked at me and they've never seen me like this, guys. Keep in mind, like, Santana's my first love, first boyfriend, first everything. And so they've literally never seen me like this. And I think it was a moment that everyone, like my family and I knew, like, this is it for me. Like, this is a person that I'm going to marry.
Then comes what a lot of people have named the zombie era of Santana, where I was very much not okay. 2 weeks in to her being there, I feel like the Lord really pressing me and just being like, Santana, I would love it to have some alone time with you, i.e. stop talking to Tshego.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen for like 2 days, and then eventually I was like, okay. So I sent her a message. I let her know the scriptures that I believe he was speaking to me through it. She felt the same thing, same scriptures. So we were like, okay, this is God. We honestly thought it was going to be like 3 weeks.
3 weeks, like a month max.
21 days. Guess how long it was? Almost 5 months.
It was insane.
Of nothing. No WhatsApp.
No nothing.
No Instagram. No Snapchat. Nothing. Nothing.
And literally, how we would communicate is that before we left, the day that I left at the Nando's, we made a playlist together where we just put songs that we loved. Actually, I think we'd been accumulating them throughout that week because we knew it was my last week.
Yeah.
And so we only communicated through this playlist. He would put songs and I would put songs, and it's like, I'm still thinking of you, I still love you, but like we're not texting.
That and the videos I was editing at church.
Yeah, so he was editing church for the kids ministry, and I would watch it because then I would like see Santana throughout the weeks. I could see what his hair was looking like it was just cringe. But like I would not cringe, it's sweet. But I would like get to see him like in real time through these videos. And we had like cute things in our relationships, like ladybugs and little things. Flamingos.
So I'd put a little one of those somewhere in.
Yes, he
for
would
her
put
to
like
find.
a little, Easter egg for me to find in those videos.
In post and editing. So that was how we did it for 5 months. In that time, holy smokes, I feel like I went through a whole spiritual death and rebirth. Yeah. And it wasn't like coming back to the Lord. It was just him working through stuff with me. I did emotionally healthy spirituality course, worked through stuff with my family, with friends, cried it out a lot. I spent many Saturdays alone because I had just stepped out of a ministry that
had all your friends basically.
Yeah, that all of my friends were in, and so they were always doing ministry stuff. So I didn't see them much. So most Saturdays was me, myself and I, just me and Jesus, alone in my head, going for walks, playing guitar, watching movies. It was a lot of alone time. And I was pretty depressed in that time. But in a good way.
Depressed, but God is like working stuff out of you. But everyone was like, yo, Tshego, when you left, Santana was a zombie, man. He was not okay. I'm glad you're back.
And she was in New York.
And I was living my dream.
Bro, she was having an adventure and I was in the pits.
Because this is the other part of my dream, you know? And this is also where I met my best friend in the whole wide world, Elisha Joy Danzig. And so... But it's funny because even though I was living the dream, and I was telling my friend Leia this other day, it was like, I kid you not, every day or every other day, I'd cry when I got home because I missed Santana.
True. Yeah, that's true.
And so it's like, it was like this like wrestle in my heart where I realized like that my dream is so much more... It's so much bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I was like, my dream is my career and what I feel like God is going to do in and through me with regards to my work, my vocation. But then I realized actually my dream is also like to be a wife and to be a mom and to have a family and to do all of those things alongside the person that God's called me to be with. And so it felt like the dream was incomplete without him. So it felt like God was saying like, here's a taste of what I've called you to, but like, don't forget who I've called you to do this with. And so it was like that wrestle where it's like, actually my dream feels incomplete without the person he's called me to do it with. That doesn't mean like, again, if you're single, then, you know, you're not full of purpose and vision and God can't use you. It's 100% he will and he can. But there's certain dreams that God had put in my heart and certain things he was already working out that also helped me not to make an idol of that dream that he gave me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now there's a lot of detail in all like each of these things, and if we had to make a full thing, it would probably take us like 12 hours.
Maybe we'll write a book one day.
So maybe we'll write a book with all the little details. But to be concise, it came to the place I was waiting for God to tell me I could speak to her again, and he walked me through that and went, actually, you need to decide because I've done what I need to do now.
Yeah.
Then it was praying, it was fasting, it was chatting to friends who were praying and fasting with me. Then she started to feel a stirring in her spirit. I started to feel a stirring in my spirit. And then I messaged her again. She was like, I knew it. I knew we were going to message.
I knew it. I didn't know it was going to be today. But I knew it was coming up. And it was so funny. Okay, we'll call. Yeah.
We started talking. She's supposed to come back December. Everything's amazing. Then flights get cancelled.
Yeah.
She doesn't come
back. So the whole plan that whole year was like, we just have to wait for December.
6 months.
6 months. We were like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. December rolls in and all of a sudden you're not going back.
Nope.
And like Santana was said, all of those words that we got in the beginning, like I'm doing a new thing, Isaiah, wait on the, like all of those were coming back. I'd meet up with my friends and they'd be like, God told me like new thing for you. And like, God's going to do a new thing. So I knew that I was going to see Santana again and he was going to refresh that spark and he was not done with us. But then I didn't come back and I'm like, God, what does this even mean?
Yeah.
And so the only next time that I'd be able to come back would be February.
And I was like, February?
So I'm like, we waited 6 months and now we have to wait 2 more months. And I was like, I literally had a calendar on my wall crossing out days until I see Santana again.
But it was good because in that time, She was supposed to come around December. She was just going to come and we were going to be intentional friends again. Then, in that time, God starts stirring me, and it gets to the place where it's like, actually, I need to ask this girl to be my girlfriend. I need to make this official. I need to speak to her dad, because it would be dishonoring to her and to everyone else to be like, no, we're not dating, but because everyone can see it.
When we started speaking again, we couldn't help the romance that was just like coming out of us.
Bursting out.
Like my friend Elisha, she had like thrown me a surprise 21st birthday party, and Santana made like this movie of our story, and it played at my party for all my friends to see, and everyone's like, this man is in love with you, and I'm like, I'm in love with him, but we're not saying it. So it kind of felt like we have to kind of be in alignment with what's actually going on.
Yeah, so then I organized a coffee with her dad. We sat down. I basically let him know my intentions as respectfully as I could, which was, I'd love to date your daughter, not for fun, because I'd like to marry her one day. So with your permission, with your blessing, I'd love to ask you to be my girlfriend. He said yes, and he really enjoyed that whole interaction.
Yeah.
And then it was so funny. I was waiting for God to let me know I could date her, but then it's almost like he was going, bro, you need to make this decision. I'm not going to force you into stuff. And so from when we started talking again, I don't feel like God said, you need to do this. It was me going, God, I want to do this. And he went, cool.
Good.
And then he would give me a word once I'd made the decision. So once I'd made the decision to date her, I spoke to her dad, my folks, people at church, and got that all cleared. Then he gave me a massive word in Genesis, which is a whole big thing to explain. But basically, the word was a date. And the date was the day she flew back.
Yeah.
And the word was like, on that day, the great watery depths are going to burst open, i.e. it's going to rain like crazy. It rained in New York when she was leaving.
Yes.
It was raining here in South Africa when
arrived.
she landed. And I was like, this is too weird. And
it was the 17th day of the second month. Keep in mind, guys, I was supposed to come back in December. That word would have been completely different. If it wouldn't have actually held weight. But I literally left. No, I arrived. No, I left the 17th day of the second month, just like that verse had said.
Yeah, it's just that you travel for a freaking day.
Yeah, I travel for a day. Another really, really important thing about this is when I first got saved when I was 14 years old, this verse comes from the story of Noah and the ark. So it comes from Genesis 6 and Genesis 7. And when I was like meeting Jesus, and I was asking about like my purpose and what he had put me on this earth to do, one of the huge anchor words in my life is Genesis 6. And the story of Noah and the ark is a huge story in my life, in my walk with God. And my sister even literally got a bracelet engraved with that on it. And so the fact that was the story that God gave Santana a word from in order to kind of cement what he was doing in the spirit realm and here on earth, it was just like, it was such like a meta, like, oh my gosh, God, you're doing a thing.
Yeah, it was insane.
So I land.
She lands, it's raining. I have a date planned. I have an area that I'm going to ask her to be my girlfriend. It's on top of this hill, but it's outside. So we go to McDonald's, which was like the first place we accidentally went on a date and realized we liked each other. We weren't alone, we were with friends, but we were
sharing a McFlurry and we're like,
that's romantic. So then in McDonald's, I prayed, Lord, let it stop raining so I can ask you to be my girlfriend.
Because it literally didn't stop raining from when I arrived.
And as we drove from McDonald's to the spot, it stopped raining. And I was like, holy smokes, I am like a prophet. This is so cool.
How'd you be like, I'm Elijah?
I'm Elijah. And then I asked her to be my girlfriend. It was beautiful. We went back and cuddled and we just said, I love you. I love you. I love you.
Because now we can say it.
Oh my gosh. And then that week, wow.
So keep in mind, guys, I think I'm like going back to New York in 7 days. And we're like, we're just going to figure it out.
So that week, we spent time with each other like, we don't know when we're going to see each other again. Because we didn't. She's supposed to be going back in...
for the first time.
Oh, but we were like, we're not going to kiss till we're engaged. And we lasted 6 days.
But then the 7th day, it's like, it's our last day.
Yeah, it was so juicy. Yeah. Anyways, so then Saturday rolls around. Oh, wait. Let me just say this. On the Sunday, she landed on Saturday. The next day we went to church, it's Sunday, and we sat down with one of our mates, Mash, and we're telling him, like, we started dating, it's amazing.
So nice.
He was so hyped, but she's going back, and then I was like, but her ticket's not booked yet, so we'll see. And Mash looked at me and she's like, no, but I am. And Mash just laughed in her face and was like,
You're not going home.
yo, you're not serious, bro. You're not going home.
You're not going to New York.
This is it. You're home now. And she's like, no, I'm not. I'm going back. So we do the whole week. Saturday comes and goes. And it's like, okay, she's going back the next weekend.
Yeah.
That comes and goes. Okay, we're going to try get you in next month. That comes and goes. Okay, next semester, you're starting.
We're going to be there.
You guys get the picture.
And then my dad literally just had to tell me, like, I'm so sorry, but we can't afford to get you back to New York.
Yeah, money kind of just tanked. And so this sucks because her stuff was in New York.
Guys,
everything.
when I tell you, I had literally no idea. My whole life, I only bought clothes for 7 days. I had to I had to wear Santana's clothes. I had nothing, guys. I packed for a 7-day holiday.
Yeah.
And my whole closet was there. My life was there. Everything. And I told all of my friends, I told my church community, like I was on planning center. I had like to be at our kids ministry in 2 weeks. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I had to be at like all of these different events because as far as I knew, I was coming back. So it was really like a world crashing for me.
Yeah, it
was really hard. It was really, really hard.
And that's how our relationship started, with her literally mourning one of the biggest dreams she's ever had.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful journey. God was taking her through and basically showing her, I've made you for more than just New York.
Yeah, but also like, yes, I've made you for more than what you think I have. And I'm also like, this is one of the huge things, and we'll probably get more into that the next time we do talk about, excuse me, part 3 of our story. But it's basically that verse where it's like, man makes his plans, but God orders his steps.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do was make my plan and order my steps. And it was God bringing me into new and greater depths of surrender and really believing that his plan for me is better than the plan that I have for myself, which is something I really didn't believe for a long time.
So then we're dating and we're figuring this thing out and we're ready to get married. Nah. Like if God made her stuck in South Africa, I want to get hitched before she goes back. So we were on this thing, and basically from the moment we started dating, we were like, okay, cool, we're ready to get married. Not ready as in like the maturity's there, but from our heart, there wasn't a fear.
There wasn't a fear. It was like, I know that this is my husband.
From April 7th, when we had the conversation, it was like, yeah, we could get married tomorrow and I wouldn't be afraid.
Yeah.
100%. So that was kind of the
heart posture
posture we had when dating. It wasn't figuring it out. It wasn't, is this the right person? It was, this is my person.
It was like,
I'm going to marry them. So
it was dating with the intention of marriage, and everyone knew that because we had come into the relationship knowing what we wanted it to end up being. Obviously, life happens, and there was room for us to be open-handed with God about it, which is what everyone encouraged. Like, be open-handed with the things of God. If life happens, things change, be open-handed. But then also, it was like, God has done something, and so step forward in faith and trust. And so we trusted that we were going to get married. It was just, how is he going to make it work?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so funny because even looking back, even though I was devastated and I'm like, God, this came out of nowhere. One of my friends earlier on in the year had sent me a message. The same friend that was saying, oh, I feel like God's doing like a new thing right before Santana messaged. She sends me a verse and it says, how long will you wonder, O daughter of Israel? Don't you know that the woman will return to the man? And I remember reading that being like, what is this about? Like when I was still in New York. I was like, that's not for me. I was like, what is this about? She was like, hon, I don't know. Like, I just felt this on my heart, so I'm just going to put it here for you. And I was like, okay. And then I remember like something in my mind being like, what if it's about like going home and staying home? But I was like, that's not going to be me. I'm going to finish New York. And then looking back on it, it was literally the Holy Spirit. It was the loving kindness of God preparing me ahead of time for what was already going to happen.
Yeah. So that's taken us to dating. And then in our dating time, it was just like, to summarize it briefly, before all the engagement stuff, our dating time was like, I was discovering more of who I am through Tshego's encouragement, like in little things like, babe, let me dress you, let me do your fashion. What about this? What about that? What about that? And same for her. Like, I was bringing out sides of her that she was like, I'm not a granola girl. I don't hike. I don't like being barefoot. Exhibit A.
No, this is the thing, guys. I always loved an adventure. I always liked to hike, but I would definitely say...
No, you were I'm Miss Musical Theater.
I am Miss Musical Theater, but the thing is that I'm both. Oh my God, take me to Brooklyn. I'm both.
She was rejecting it hard. Like, she was just fighting with every fiber in her being, I'm not an outdoor girl. No.
I
And I was
am
like-
though, but like you're lying on my name now because I've always been adventurous my whole life. It's just like
Yeah.
I'm not
But
necessarily.
in that era, you weren't open-handed to it.
That's true.
You were like,
But I have been an
swatting it
outdoor
away.
girl my whole life.
She
in
has.
the sense,
So I was just
like,
trying to
I've
help her
always
to
been
see
an
that.
adventurous person, or whatever.
I was just trying to help her to see that.
But I would
She
say
was I don't ever want to do dreads.
that's so true. I definitely think being with Santana has made me more myself, and has also made me more comfortable in my skin than I thought I ever would be.
Being with Circles made me more myself. And helped me to get more comfortable in my skin. I mean, holy smokes. You guys are going to see in part 3.
Yeah,
It's kind of insane.
it is kind of insane.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into part 2.
Thank you so much for waiting so patiently for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like the end of dating to engagement, our whole dating to engagement marriage testimony is insane. So
Yeah.
we are so excited.
We're through
to
the
share that with
beefy
you.
parts now, though. Like, that was all it's a lot. Now comes the climax.
The climax.
But thank you guys so much for watching, for subscribing, commenting, sharing, liking.
We
'Cause
appreciate you guys so much.
We've just gotten monetized because
yes,
of you guys, which
that's
is
such
amazing.
huge news. We're monetizing, guys.
You know what that means? No longer unemployed.
Yes.
I am a YouTuber. We're YouTubers, which is really, really cool. So we want to stay consistent with this thing. We want to keep on sharing, not so that we can build an empire, but because we believe
In building
that,
kingdom.
you know, God's given us a story because he wants to, I guess, bring eyes and attention to himself.
So
And
that he
we
can
wanna help him do
exalt
that.
his church.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we want to help build the church, build the kingdom, inspire people. If you're not a Christian, that's okay. We have a saying at our church, and I'd like to adopt it for this channel, which is you can belong before you believe. So just come belong, hang out. Hope this inspires you some way. Hope it makes you believe in love again, or encourage you to keep on believing in love if you do.
Hope it gives you vision.
Hope it gives you vision.
I hope it gives
Yes.
you hope.
Mm.
I hope it is your Jeremiah 29 verse 11, not because of us, but because of what God has done in and through us, which is to give you a hope in the future.
And then I think one of these days we'll do like a Q&A
Yeah.
where we'll jump on our Instagram or something
Or maybe
or
even
on
ask a
YouTube.
question
Yeah.
in our post.
and just get a bunch of questions from you guys and try to answer them, because I've seen there's a lot and I want to get to them.
Yeah.
Make it like a community chat, which would be sick.
Yeah.
Okay,
We love you guys.
thank you. You
Thank
guys are
you.
the best. Have a great rest of your day, week, December, whenever it is you're watching this. And we'll see you in the next video
Bye.
and or part 3.
Yes, bye.